Ladies, gentlemen, fellas, welcome into a two-game playoff slate today. Happy National Wyoming Day to, 1% of the population watching this and listening to this that's from Wyoming. And happy National Brothers Day to my brothers specifically and to all my fellow brothers out there right now watching this. Happy Brothers Day to you as well. Let's get into a two-game slate with the top 8 schmacks on the day today. We're going to give you the information you need to take down this slate early on. Look, it's a two-game slate in the postseason where there's literally no injury news. Maybe Zach Collins makes a surprise start somewhere. Other than that, we're going to be knowing exactly what we're dealing with and rocking with today. So it's going to be pretty simple to break down this slate for all you beautiful people out there. The number 8 play in the slate is going to be Damien Lillard. And on the slate that features a ton of studs. Nicole Yokic, Damien Lillard, Jimmy Butler, Giannis, right? That's just to name a few of these fellas. You're going to be saying, Damien Lillard, number 8 overall? Yeah, because we actually have some value for once on this squad and on this slate. Damien Lillard, the number 8 play on the slate, is going to see a slight price bump up at $9,500, but it's completely fine. A 112.75 team and 5 total, that's great. The highest pace environment out of the two games, so, it's not that hard, but the highest pace environment out of the two games is in this Portland and Denver game today. And I am giving Damien Lillard 40 minutes of play today. On the season, he's been close to a 1.3 fantasy point per minute producer. Since the start of April, since April 1st, Damien Lillard has played 810 minutes, and he is averaging exactly 1.3 fantasy points per minute. He got 40 minutes in the first playoff game, a game in which they kind of won convincingly, especially down the stretch. I expect right around there yet again, 40 minutes, if not more minutes than that. This is exactly what Damien Lillard played all of last postseason and the postseason before that. Rarely did you see him go below 38. Most of the time, he was hovering between 39 and 42. Damien Lillard, for me, projects out today for 50.98 points on DraftKings. He actually looks a little bit better on SuperDraft, but on both spots, he is a very, very nice play today. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you all a ton. Now that we're back to the work week, the Monday, right? We're going to be having some golf content coming out in the live stream later today for this two-game slate. Probably not a ton to break down, but I do think there'll be interesting spots to talk about for correlation, for building lineups, for getting leverage on a two-game slate, especially with some big prize pools into the playoffs here. So how the fuck was all your weekends? Let me know in the comment section down below as we get into the rest of this. Like and subscribe. Do all those wacky things as we end out the month of May, head into the month of June, which officially kicks off for myself, your boy. 2021 fantasy football season. We'll have some content out there as well for you. That was a lot. That was a mouthful. That was very, very fast talking. The number 7 play on the slate is going to be another stud, Nicole Yokic. How is this guy not higher? Honestly, if we can get Nicole Yokic playing 40 minutes in the playoffs, he's going to be higher on this slate. $10,700. There's a lot of studs on the slate, like we said. And spoiler alert, Giannis is not on this top 8 list. I believe he's the number 9 or number 10 play on the slate today. I currently have 10 guys as yeses today. This is just 8 of them. If you want to see the entire player pool, you can check it out over on Patreon. My player pool today consists of just like 22 players. It's just a two-game slate. 22 players. How do I hone that down into just an 8-man lineup for my single entry and 3 max lineups today? Well, that's going to be somewhat of the difficult part. We can probably chop it down to 15 rather easily, but it becomes a difficulty after that. Nicole Yokic in the last game out there, he played just 35 minutes. Shot 27 times in the game. Played a fine game. 58 fantasy points. That's what you like to see. That's basically what I have him for today. I have him for 58.3 fantasy points. So if he does it again, you're not mad. You're not upset. You just hope that he outscores basically Giannis Antetokounmpo at that point. And if Giannis doesn't go to overtime like last time, that probably does indeed happen. I'm actually giving Nicole Yokic today more minutes than the 35 that he's seeing, but I'm still projecting him out for 58 fantasy points. I have Nicole Yokic as of right now, as it stands, for 36 minutes to play with the upside to play more, 37-38. This guy is the highest team implied total on the slate. This guy has no other studs on his team. Michael Porter Jr. is a phantom stud right now, a one-way player, if you will. And that's all that he's competing with against some lackluster defensive center play for Portland. And I think you actually likely start to see more minutes, especially because they're down 1-0 in the series. Crunch time comes. Jokic probably gets those extra 3 to 4 minutes, takes you over the top. The number 7 play on this slate. The number 6 play on the slate right here, CJ McCollum. We like CJ McCollum today. I have CJ McCollum right now projected, I think, higher than most of the industry does. I have him for over 40 fantasy points at 40.24 fantasy points. I'm giving the guy 38 minutes of play today. He's been playing like 36 lately. Didn't play 38 in the last playoff game, but that's fine. Giving him 38 minutes of play today. Going up 2-0 in a series is absolutely massive. If we look over back at Portland, right now CJ McCollum has played the most minutes since the beginning of April by a significant margin, 910 minutes by about 60 minutes. That's like 2 games basically, right? He's averaging 1.07 fantasy points per minute. So his point per minute production since he returned to the lineup, when he first came out, he was averaging like 1.25, 1.3, right? Beginning of the season before he got hurt. 1.2 fantasy points per minute, basically saying that he was a fantastic producer. Well, now he's actually dropped a significant amount to 1.07. So that's why these projections can't be as good unless you give him big minutes. And I'm giving him big minutes today. I'm giving him 38 minutes of play. And at that 1.06, 1.08 fantasy point per minute projection range, projects out for 40.24 fantasy points and the number 6 play on this slate today. Now let's get into the top 5. I appreciate everybody in the streets right now watching this. Thank you so much for rocking with us throughout the NBA playoffs. You all rock. I want to let you know as we continue to go through this. So we will have that live stream later today. We'll have some golf content coming out over the next couple of days. So be sure to have the notification bell on so you get notified of all the new content that we have dropping. Also have another podcast life update with my girlfriend dropping on this channel sometime, potentially today or even tomorrow. That will be dropping about a 50-minute podcast, episode 4 of Life Update. The number 5 play in the slate today is going to be Jusuf Nurkic. We got the minutes back out of Jusuf Nurkic. We actually have a decent matchup. People think on Nicole Yokic. Nicole Yokic is fine both ways. He's a fine two-way center, but he's not a traditional center. He's not going to turn you down in the paint. He's not going to block you in the paint. He's going to take you out of the paint a lot, which makes you struggle on defense, which is why Nurkic is not really going to stop Nicole Yokic. Nobody usually does. But in the paint, Nurkic is going to be fine, and we saw that in game 1, and we've now seen Nurkic start to regather himself, if you will. Not only playing more minutes, but becoming more of a fantasy point per minute producer in those minutes. Nurkic in game 1 of the postseason played 33 minutes, the most that we've seen to him since he returned from injury, and he goes off for 42 fantasy points. This is now 40 or more fantasy points in 4 out of his last 5 games. And today I have Nurkic projected exactly for 37.65 fantasy points. Based on the price point of $6,700. I mean, you can argue that he should be $7,500 to $8,000 today. And you can maybe even argue that I'm under projecting him today by giving him just 32 minutes and not 33 or 34 like he played in that first game of the postseason. And I would say you have a point there. So I might be under projecting Nurkic, and he's still grading out as a top 5 player in this slate for me right now. He's still grading out as the center that I have the most interest in. And the reason I'm more interested in than Nicole Yokic is Nicole Yokic actually has competition for those 60, 70 plus point games in Giannis Antetokounmpo. And it's probably hard to get the both of them together on this 2-game slate today, right? Whereas $6,700 Nurkic actually fills sort of a value void for you on a slate with not a lot of standout options, if you will, in the 6K and below range. Nurkic today, the number 5 play on the slate. As we get inside the final 4 plays, please do support the sponsor of the program today. If you deposit anything, your first time over on Prize Picks, they'll double your money up to $100. Free money. So you like free money out there? Do you like having free wagers out there? I just placed one this morning. Prize Picks is an over-under platform where you just take the over-unders on stats. It's as simple as that player prop platform where you can take the over-unders on fantasy points. Early on today, I went a little bit crazy. A flex play. So you can actually do a flex play where if you only get 3 out of 5 right, you still get money back. You get 4 out of 5 right, you still profit. So it's not just a full-on parlay. So there's some benefits there. So this is the entry that I currently have in place. I have Giannis under. I mean, you can just tail this if you want to. I have Giannis under 12.5 rebounds, Brook Lopez under 12.5 points, Anthony Simons under 18 points. He scored over that last time, but he also shot like 5 of 6 from three-point land. Not going to happen again. Carmelo under 23. He's give or take on that. Does he make his extra 3 or not? And then Norman Powell over 24.5. Norman Powell may be a spoiler alert. We see him later on this list. That is a significant difference from what I have on Powell. I have him for closer to 30 fantasy points today. So if you want to tail this or you want to place any of your own, it is as simple as choosing the over-under, and you can actually choose a flex play if you don't want to do a normal power play parlay, a flex play, and you can actually make money by not getting them all right. You can use that code SAL. So use the code SAL on the screen right now, promo code SAL, S-A-L, the link in the description below, and bam, Prize Picks will smack you with a double your money bonus up to $100. So if you put in 25, you get 25 right back. And if you're in New York, as of 3 days ago, New York is now available to play. We've had some New Yorkers in the Discord getting able to play. Some of my friends played while they were at Yankee Stadium, which is awesome. So if you're in New York and you've been holding out because you haven't had a place to bet yet or do any props, this is your spot now. Check it out in the description below. So now the number 4 play on the slate, Mr. Buzzer Beater himself. Not no more Mr. Playoff PG, right? Paul George, Playoff Paul. It is now Mr. Playoff Jimmy. Playoff buckets. It is the postseason, and Jimmy Buckets has come alive. The lowest implied team total on the slate. They're up 1-0 in the series after that overtime victory that was oh so beautiful and lovely to watch for the first playoff game of the season for anybody for the NBA. Jimmy Butler's just $8,500. Here's the thing. Jimmy Butler's $8,500. There's not that much separating Jimmy Butler for Damien Lillard once it comes time to the postseason, except the fact that they're $1,000 difference, which is why Jimmy Butler is a higher ranked player for me. Jimmy Butler, Damien Lillard, both going to average around 1.3 fantasy points per minute in the postseason. And you can see right here, just since the start of April, the last 2 months or so, Jimmy Butler is actually already averaging 1.3 fantasy points per minute. So it's not even like he's increasing his production in the postseason. He's just a highly productive player. 1.3 fantasy points per minute. The 30+% assist percentage. We love to see that. So you're getting a similar productive player, if not the exact same production levels this season, if not better for Jimmy Butler. And I would argue it has been better for Butler than Damian Lillard throughout the entire season. So you're getting that. The only difference today is that one, somewhat of the matchup, Milwaukee versus Denver, right? Denver's down some guards. Gary Harris not on the team anymore. Jamal Murray out from a defensive standpoint, but it's really just the minutes. I have Damian Lillard for 40 minutes today. I have Jimmy Butler for 38. So for a 2-minute difference, you're giving up $1,000. That's too much in my opinion. And honestly, those 2 minutes might not even be valid. Butler did play 40+ minutes in regulation, 40.5 in that last game. So they can easily play the same minutes today. There's no reason why there should be $1,000 difference. If anything, you can tell me that Damian Lillard should be at most $400 to $500 more expensive just for those 2 minutes. But right now, $1,000 is ridiculous. Number 4 play on the slate, Jimmy Butler. For me, I have him for 48.74 fantasy points today. The number 3 play on the slate is something that we teased on the Prize Picks over-under. Go ahead and get him. Over 24.5 is not going to stay there for long. I think that number gets up to 26 or 27 before lock today, if not higher to 28. I've got him for over 30 fantasy points today. 30.98 fantasy points for Norman Powell, who played 37 minutes in the last game, who's going to play big minutes for this team, and he fits a perfect spot in shooting guard small forward for you, and he might be the best overall value play on the slate right now. There's one guy who's going to push him for that, and we'll talk about him in a second, but $5,400, you're really not going to find 3K value on the slate. You're just not. You can punt with Austin Rivers, you can punt with Paul Millsap, and hope that one of them plays 20 minutes and scores you 16 to 20 fantasy points, but otherwise you're just not. JaMychal Green, right? You're going to find a couple of 4K options, maybe 2 or 3, right? You have Brook Lopez on the slate. You have Dante DiVincenzo. You have Duncan Robinson, and a guy we'll talk about momentarily. But if you're just talking about overall best values, Norman Powell at $5,400 looks like a standout option on the slate, a 112.75 team implied total. I'm giving Norman Powell 38 minutes of play today, and even if you just give him like 0.85 fantasy points per minute, not even what he's been doing on the season, which is closer to 0.9, he starts to look like a quality option for you. Over 30 fantasy points for me right now. Norman Powell, the number 3 play on the slate, coming off of that 37-minute game where he shot poorly. Expect a little bit of a rebound there and a bump upwards for him in the fantasy point department streets. Take that over 24.5 over on Prize Picks. The number 2 play on the slate is going to be my second option from Denver after Nicole Yokic, and he's probably the second best offensive player and fantasy player in this team. Will Barton is still out. That man's name is going to be Michael Porter Jr. Michael Porter Jr. for me today projects out for 41 fantasy points. He's massively underpriced. He was $8,000 like a week ago, and now you're getting him $1,000 cheaper. And the funny thing is, you get him $1,000 cheaper after he plays 37 minutes. He shoots 12 of 21, which is not so bad, 57%, and he scores 40 fantasy points. So he should technically still be $8,000. Michael Porter Jr. again today is $7,000. 3 games ago, he was $8,700. 2 games ago, he was $8,400. I don't know why the price point is dropping. This is a blunder. This is a mistake. This is maybe a way to build easier lineups, and DraftKings is doing this purposely, so it's easier to make lineups today, and you like your lineups a lot, and more people can potentially play and get in without I don't know how to build these lineups because I don't know who Marcus fucking Howard is on Denver, right? You probably don't even know that name right now. Yeah, he's a player, and he played 20 minutes in the last game. So at a 41 fantasy point projection, and speaking of projections, by the way, I have all the projections already done for this 2-game slate. We'll have projections for MMA, PGA, MLB, all that type of stuff for this week. On Patreon ownership, we have the Big Energy Lineup Optimizer, which is massive. It allows you to kind of really control and hone in on your lineups by making groups and by building as many lineups as you want to, up to 150, 300 lineups, and play from there. A Discord access for all Patreon members. It's linked down below if you want to join the community. Come on in. If you're looking for somewhere to increase your winning potential, join a community and reduce the amount of money that you're losing in the streets. Reduce your research time. Check out Patreon. It's linked down below. Would love to have you. If you get in there, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Michael Porter Jr. right now at $7,000. If you look at what Denver's been doing since the beginning of April, Michael Porter Jr. now at that cheap price point, if we look at what he's been doing since the beginning of April, he has played the most minutes on this team, and he has averaged a whopping 1.16 fantasy points per minute. That is insane. I'm projecting him under that today. I'm just projecting him for 1.1 fantasy points per minute. So you can see where this is starting to go. At $7,000, he can easily start to score in the mid to upper 40s in fantasy points every additional minute that he gets. If he plays 40 minutes somehow today, and it's not that far off, 37 in the last one, massive upside for Michael Porter Jr. So it may indeed be surprising after all that Michael Porter Jr. is somehow not the number 1 play on the slate today, but there's another fella out there who's still playing big minutes on a 2-game slate, and you need some sort of value today. So if you're looking for the quote-unquote pay-ups at $7,000 and above, yeah, Michael Porter Jr. is probably going to be your best option today. But if you're just looking for overall value on the slate, at $4,400 today, Robert Covington is the number 1 play on the day. Like and subscribe right now to this channel. Let's break down the number 1 play and hit that notification bell so you know when we're going live later today, so you can schmack me with your questions. I'll take the schmack and I'll throw 2 right back at you. Robert Covington, the number 1 play on the day today. He's coming off of a 34-minute game. And look, here's the thing. He's not playing fantastic. 19 fantasy points, 18 fantasy points. 33 fantasy points, 18 fantasy points. But you're looking for a consistent value getting minutes and somebody who plays relatively close to the basket. 34 minutes in the last game, not getting a lot of shot attempts lately. Just 10 shot attempts in the last 2 games. That's going to be the issue if you have to rely on just peripheral stats for a guy who maybe picks you up 5, 6, 7 rebounds and not much after that. But here's the thing. There's nobody else for value today. Robert Covington is going to be one of the only guys who gets minutes in the value range. You'll be looking at guys for value today like Brook Lopez. He's a similar player to Robert Covington in my opinion. He's just going to rely more on the 3-ball, and that's about it. Whereas Robert Covington at least picks you up some rebounds outside of the 3-ball as well, 4 3-pointers in that first playoff game. Robert Covington is nowhere near a lock today, but again, when you're looking at it, outside of a Brook Lopez, there's nobody else that gives you any type of consistent value below the $5,400 price tag of Norman Powell today. So Covington is strictly a pricing pricing play, but a pricing play that you at least get some fantasy points off of because of the minutes he plays. I've got Covington for 25.9 fantasy points today, significantly more than he's had in that first playoff game and in the last 2 games in general. I think Covington starts to take more shot attempts, and then I think Covington starts to find more success in those minutes he's playing, and there's an upside over the 34 that he can play. He can play additional run, right? Carmelo Anthony was hot in that last game, stayed on the court for probably an additional 3 minutes. If Carmelo Anthony is not hot, and he's basically hot and cold every single game, if today he's not making all of his shots, well then 37 minutes for Covington comes into play for a guy who's been averaging close to 0.8 fantasy points per minute so far this season. So there's your top 8 schmacks for a very simple, if you will, quote unquote simple 2-game slate today. If you have any questions, just reach out to me in the Patreon Discord, over on Twitter at DFS, which I'm just now realizing wasn't on the screen this entire motherfucking time, but now we have it up on the screen right there. I thought something was missing. I thought I recorded the show with my girlfriend, and we had to change some things around, make some room for her so she can sit here, so I had to take that overlay off. But now we're back. So check it out. Check out the rest of the content coming out today. Check out the projections and ranks, and be sure to support the sponsor of the program, where I have a 5-play flex play in today in PrizePicks. If you want to follow and track that one, we showed it a little bit earlier on. Use that code SAL, S-A-L, so you can get schmacked with a deposit match up to $100. Free money while you leave it on the streets. New Yorkers out there, my fellow New Yorkers. I'm from Staten Island, grew up, born and raised Brooklyn, New York, born and raised in Staten Island, New York. My fellow New Yorkers out there, let's go. Get up in PrizePicks. Get yourself, go to your Knicks games, go to your Yankees games, and be betting on the player props while you're there. It makes it so much motherfucking better. We'll see you later on today. Peace out, gang. I appreciate you all more than you know.